Police officers of Reddit, when was the last time someone you pulled over made you laugh and why? I once transported a man who sang ABBA a whole 2-hour drive. I asked if he was on something in case I needed assistance walking him once we got there. He said, "No, if I have to be punished so do you." So then we sang ABBA together. It was awful. Not my story, but one my dad liked to tell. He was behind a car at a traffic light and noticed the driver seemed very nervous and kept glancing in the rearview mirror. It was a long light, so he had time to run the plate to check for any abnormalities. Sure enough, the driver had reason to be nervous, as he had just stolen a shiny new sports car, and the marked police car behind him seemed to have figured this out. For whatever reason, Dad ended up in a lot of car chases in the 33 years as a cop and started carrying a helmet to keep from getting banged up as much. When the car came back stolen, he reached over, grabbed his helmet, put it on, and tightened the chin strap, expecting the guy was going to run. As soon as the light turned green, he caught the driver looking back at his now crash helmeted self and gave a huge grin indicating he was ready for an epic car chase. As soon as the light turned green, the driver went through the light and pulled over before Dad even turned on the lights and siren. When Dad got to the window and asked him why he pulled over, the driver said, "Sir, this car isn't mine, and honestly I was gonna make a run for it, but when I saw you put a helmet on, I knew you meant business." Highly underrated post. Running a clearly intoxicated older woman through SFSTs. I'm trying to check her eyes, which calls for her to keep her head completely still and follow my finger with her eyes only. Every time I move my finger to the side she just keeps looking at my face. I remind her several times to follow my finger and eventually ask her if she plans on trying at all. She gently touches my cheek and in her slurred, drunken speech says, "How am I supposed to concentrate when you're so freaking handsome?" I was flattered. She later puked on me at the jail. "So you're married now or what?" Best one I ever had. I remember it was about 10 or 11 at night. Not too early, but late enough that it was easy to catch speeders on the highway doing 30-40 over the limit. Speed limit was 90 km/h and this vehicle is off in the distance, and I clock him at a zoomy 70 km/h. I think to myself that the only reason the vehicle is driving slow is due to impairment. I'm figuring an easy impaired charge. After pulling the vehicle over, I approach the driver, shine my light in, and see a very elderly gentleman. He looks at me and said something along the lines of, "Why did you pull me over?" I know I wasn't speeding. I told him that I agreed with him, and after getting his license and vehicle reg, I told him I had pulled him over for going so slowly, and that I was worried he was impaired. There were no visible indications or odor of impairment. He let out a big smile and said that he hasn't had a drink in over 40 years. Upon asking him why he was driving so slowly, when with very little traffic on the road, most vehicles speed, his response was this: "Son, it was my monthly model train meetup tonight, and it's the one night my wife lets me go out by myself." When you've been married for over 50 years, you appreciate the silence and private times. I'm in no rush to get back home. Speed limit was 90 km/h. For US Redditors, that's approximately 150,000 furlongs per fortnight. Late to the party, but almost every time I've ever been pulled over, the cop takes my license, and after calling it in, comes back with it and asks me to get out of the car. I get out, stand up, they say, "Holy crap. I thought 218 centimeters was a typo." Then after some laughter and chatting, they let me go on my way. A couple of times, they've even taken my photo, selfie style. It's kinda funny, and only the crustiest of the new recruits ends up writing me the ticket. For those about to look this up, 218 centimeters, cm, equals 7.15 feet featuring. I remember my friend and I were behind these factories that was near his childhood house. We always wanted to go back there and just look around. As we were down there, a cop car rolls up on us and I immediately thought we were gonna get in trouble for trespassing. The cop asks my friend what we were doing here and then points to the sign where it said "No trespassing." I was shocked at my friend's response. He began to speak Spanish to the cop, telling him that we were abiding by the law. He told the cop in fake broken English, "We no in trouble. We no trespassing. We only two people. Sign says no trespassing." I had to literally hold in laughter, but the cop burst out laughing and told us to go home. There's a homeless guy in my city who has a few mental issues. He's typically easy to deal with, so we normally leave him alone. But every now and then he will do something that warrants an arrest, or a trip to the hospital for a mental health evaluation. When he realizes that he's about to be arrested, the very first thing he does is take off his clothes. This guy is about 5 feet 2 inches and has absolutely the largest penis any of us have ever seen. He will then run into the street and dance with his giant dong flopping all over the place while we try to take him into custody. He will even occasionally drop a poop during the process. Most of us officers who have some time will do anything to avoid him, or send the rookies to do the dirty work. Meat spinning the first timers I see. Good work, Corporal. Not a cop, but my neighbor is, and he just told me a story of how he pulled over a lady and her little 3-year-old kid looked very frightened of him pulling over his mom. Before he could say anything, she said, "Oh honey, don't worry. Police officers are our friends." This nice man is supposed to make sure we all follow the rules. Got the lady for 13 over in a pretty empty street. Rang her info and was going to give her a ticket since it was 13 over in a 35. The little kid said right when he started walking to his car, "Wait, I'm having a birthday tomorrow. You don't have to bring anything, I just want all my friends there. Too cute to ticket." And the mom said he could come by. Little man's getting a cool Lego set too. This sounds like the premise for a really adorable family movie. Cop comes to party and falls in love with single mom. Adorable child is what brought them together. Not me, but my brother. He was driving our family's 1980s minivan home and was flying down a hill. Cop nabbed him at the bottom and asked him if he knew how fast he was going. The only response he had was, "Well, honestly officer, the speedometer tops out at 85, so I really have no idea." The officer cracked up at it, but still gave him a ticket. I drove an old Lincoln Town Car for years, and this was my go-to excuse when I got pulled over for speeding. Got out of 2 out of 3 tickets, so not the worst strategy. To set the scene, at a previous employer, our main data center was about 10 minutes up the road from the office. Trips between the two were commonplace. We all ran back and forth frequently. This day, we were having a connectivity issue to an entire rack of gear, and I was flying over to the data center to troubleshoot. There was construction between the office and DC, and it had been there for weeks by this point. Fines are doubled in construction zones in the state I live in, and I'm usually careful to not speed in them because those tickets are expensive. Because I was mentally reviewing why we were down and in a hurry, I failed to see the motorcycle cop sitting dead center of the construction zone with his radar gun pointed in my direction until I was in 3rd gear and 10 over the posted limit, which was 20 over the construction zone limit. He nailed me and we both knew it. Since I knew he was coming, I just pulled over into the next parking lot and he came in behind me. Dang, 30 over in a construction zone. This is gonna suck. I grabbed my paperwork out of the glove box and waited for him to do his preliminary check before he came to talk to me. As he walked up, I greeted him by saying, "Hello, officer, I'm a dumbass, aren't I?" He stared at me for a quick second, like he was trying to maintain his composure, and just couldn't do it. Started chuckling, and then after a couple of seconds, burst into these deep belly laughs. Probably laughed for a good 30 seconds before he responded, "Well, just remember, those are your words and not mine." I admitted to the offense, but asked if he could please get me back on my way quickly because I had this fire going on at work. He was really cool about it. He still wrote me a speeding ticket, but it was for 11 over and he put the location as an intersection that was past the construction zone. That was about $900 less in fines I'd be potentially facing, and made it an infraction I could take traffic school for instead of paying the fine. Super awesome guy. TL. DR. Not a cop, but sometimes being cooperative and lightening up a not so great situation does help. When I was still in field training, I was doing traffic stops with my FTO. We stopped this one kid who I felt like I'd seen before, but he also happened to have a warrant. I said, "Hey man, I'm sorry but it seems you have a warrant and I'm going to have to take you in today. Can you please step out?" He opens the door and glances back at my FTO and hesitated for a second. I saw him target glancing towards the parking lot across the street, so I asked, "You're not going to run on me, right?" And he said, "No ma'am, not from you." I seen you at the gym. But you'd run from my SGT? Yeah, I seen him at McDonald's. I couldn't hold it in LOL. FTO equals field training officer. Not a cop, but this happened when I was in like 4th or 5th grade as my grandmother was taking me home from school. Grandma suffered from really bad IBS and was speeding to get home to use the bathroom. Cop pulls us over and makes it to the window and my grandma says, "Look young man, I have bowel problems and I'm rushing home to go to the bathroom," and just pulls out and leaves. The cop runs back to his car and speeds to catch up with us. Follows us through the next small town to her house. She gets straight out to the car and goes into the house while the cop keeps saying, "Mom, come back here. Mom, you can't go inside," etc. She totally ignores him. At this point my grandpa pulls up BC. Someone had called him at his work to tell him a cop was following my grandma through the 2 smaller towns and they thought something could be wrong. Grandpa asks what's going on and the cop starts telling him to go get his wife BC, she's in a lot of trouble. Grandpa just says, "What did you want her to do? Crap in her purse on the side of the road. You need to leave before you embarrass my wife." Cop's flabbergasted and just gets in his car and leaves. Grandpa and I walk in the house and Grandma is getting out of the bathroom and says, "I need to go talk to that young man and get my ticket." Grandpa tells her, "He was just following you home to make sure you got there safe. Are you feeling okay?" Gives her a kiss and goes back to work. Grandpa was classy. They both were. Miss you Mamor and Papaw. Great story. Your granddad sounds like a top bloke. My uncle got pulled over once for speeding on I-95. He said, "Oh dang, I got the highway sign confused with the speed limit sign again." The cop laughed and let him go with a warning. Bulls, but still, good ol' 95. Not a police officer, but this happened a while ago while I was attending EMT training. In order to keep the class from driving us all crazy from boredom, the other students and I would sometimes joke around and pull pranks on each other. One day, as we were all leaving and getting ready to drive away, I had the brilliant idea to roll down my window and pretend to get a call over the radio. After announcing that I was en route to the scene, I grabbed a suction cup dildo that I had hidden, purchased and used specifically for this joke, was destroyed after completion of said joke, and slapped it on the roof of my car like some kind of old school styled blue light. I then proceeded to scream like an ambulance siren and floor it out of the lot, much to the enjoyment of my classmates. On my way home, I was doing slightly over double the speed limit on a large highway when I saw flashing lights behind me. Being a stupid teenager, I decided to take an exit and then get back on the other side of the highway. I got pulled over, but only then realized that I still had a rubber dong sitting nice and tall on the roof of my car. My greatest fears came true when the officer walked up and recognized me from school, as he was the school patrolman. Miraculously, he let me go despite the absurd speeding and possible evading. TL. DR. I was a dong. My car had a dong, cop wasn't a dong. I'm just imagining a rusted out 9000 with a dong on the roof flapping in the wind. My aunt is a police officer. Her favorite story at parties is how she once arrested a nearly naked man who was running through a busy street. As she likes to put it, the only thing he was wearing was a rubber chicken. He was wearing it through penetration. You fucks with bucks in the wild. I'm not a cop, but one time I was driving and saw a cop, so I rolled all 4 of my windows down at one time because my tint was illegal. The law where I'm from is that it has to let in 50% of the light or more, and mine was only letting in 20. As he got up to my car he started laughing and told me he liked my efforts and only wrote me a warning. My cousin had his windows tinted dark, but not too dark, and got a ticket. He went to court with the documentation of the window tint job, and the judge said he was good to go. Driving home, my cousin got pulled over for the window tint and got another ticket. The cop asked me if I knew why he had pulled me over. I said speeding. He said no, you rolled through a stop sign back there. But now that you mention it, it did take me a while to catch up to you. The cop, my friend in the passenger seat, and myself started laughing as I had this oh crap moment. He let me off with a warning. Nice guy. Answer: I'm not sure. Avoids these types of gotcha situations. There's a reason police officers led with these questions. Not a cop, but I made one laugh once when I was a little too drunk and laying on the sidewalk in a bar district. Son, what exactly do you think you're doing right here? as he taps my shoulder with his boot. Hopefully I'm reminding you of someone else you like because this is just the WW worst first impression. He laughed and helped me find some Gatorade and my friends instead of arresting me for public intoxication. So Officer Brian, if you're out there, things are going much better and thanks for being cool with me when things were just starting to get better. I was flagged down by a random motorist. I contacted the driver and he advised me there was a gentleman running out into the street and throwing rocks at cars near the water tower. I advised radio and requested county to respond since it would be on a county road. I approached the area and didn't see any pedestrians in the road or anyone throwing rocks. However, I did see a lady parked on the shoulder making what appeared to be a frantic phone call. I pull up next to her and ask her if she had seen the rock thrower. She advised she did and pointed at another roadway. By this time county shows up and we both proceed in the direction the second motorist advised. The deputy and I make a right turn and sure enough there he is, naked, with his boxers down around his ankles standing square in the middle of the road. The deputy and I exit our cars and start walking towards the guy. As I'm walking, I noticed a pair of blue jeans entangled in a barbed wire fence to my left. It would seem he attempted to climb the barbed wire fence but got hung up and gave up on the lower half of his Canadian tuxedo. The deputy and I quickly took him into custody and asked him why he was running around in the roadway scaring the local citizens. He says, "What would you do if a gay guy gave you a bunch of money?" I had no answer, so I then asked him what he was high on and he explained, "Family issues." I got a good laugh out of it. For your information, Canadian tuxedo is jean jacket and jeans. Bonus points for jean vests, but not required. Looking back, I swear I got off for this because the situation was kinda funny. Officer was fricking with us and he got a laugh after. When I was 17 my license was still pretty fresh for being able to drive alone. Me and two friends were going to the movies in the evening. I get pulled over for erratic driving. My lane changing was P4 at the time. Cop comes up, license, registration, etc. My buddy puts his hands in his hoodie and you can hear the loud crinkling of something. Cop yells to my buddy, "What do you have there? Show me." My buddy very slowly pulls out a medium-sized bag and goes, "They're gummy bears, sir," in this intimidated voice. The cop just stares at him for what felt like 15 seconds before asking us where we're going. I explained the movies, it's candy, etc. His partner, I believe, ran our info while we're talking with the officer. In the meantime I had ate a piece of candy I had. He asks me in an authoritative voice, "What you got?" I hold up the bag with a there. Candy name. It's raspberry. Want one? He looks at me with the most deadpan expression and this deep gravely voice goes, "I hate raspberry." I swear he was fricking with me. His partner came up. The officer I was dealing with said we were good to go, be careful and such, and then walked away. Not a cop, but buds, 16 at the time. Dad was. Son is driving downtown Chicago and does a U-turn almost directly in front of a cop. Said cop pulls him over and sees that he has a police organization sticker on his windshield. Cop, who's the cop? Bud, you are officer. Cop, I meant in your family, dumbass. Not a cop, but I got pulled over once. The cop came up to the car and saw I had a bag stuffed under my front seat. He said in a really heavy Jersey accent, "What's in the bag?" In my fattest Jersey accent I said, "Socks. Wanna see 'em?" He started laughing so hard he just told me to get out of here. Friend is riding with her sister to friend's bridal shower. The 5-year-old niece, a total sassapants, is in the car seat behind her mum. Driver. Police pull mom over for speeding and asks, where are you headed to in such a hurry?" The 5-year-old rolls down the window, looks at the cop with her mommy's sunglasses on and states, rather loudly, "We're going to my auntie's party. She's getting married, and I'm going to be the flower girl," and then rolls that window up like the starlet she is. Cop got the giggles and couldn't ticket to her mom because, well, she was obviously just chauffeuring a star. When I was a cop, my partner was giving a man a field sobriety test after the man had wrecked his car. After denying being drunk several times, he said, "Okay, look, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've had nothing to drink, but I am high as a bee." We all laughed, and he went to jail. We all laughed, and he went to jail. Instant change JPG. Not an officer now but called to a domestic. A married couple had split UK and the husband was living elsewhere. It was a weekend and he'd come to collect his young child to sleep over that night. A childminder was looking after said child while the wife was out at work. Husband was parked on the narrow driveway and wife arrives. She blocked him in out of sheer nastiness. That's when we were called by the husband. Husband knew the law and wanted police to witness that no offense was caused. Husband places young child safely into his car, lovely new BMW estate, whilst childish wife screamed and laughed that he couldn't go anywhere. Husband smiles at us, 2 officers, and duly goes rallying across the front garden. I'm talking through 6-foot laurel bushes, across beautiful rose beds, the lot. Wife screamed at us now as husband had left, wanted us to prosecute husband for destroying her beautiful garden. We said no, it's his garden too and no people were injured. When I get pulled over and they ask if I have been drinking, I always want to say who can afford to drink with the price of H so high. One of these days. OP, we'll be waiting for your stories. I was driving home from college with my kitten on my lap, who usually just sleeps while we're driving. Of course, I get pulled over and the officer comes up to the window and does all the pleasantries, and I start to say how sorry I am when my kitten starts meowing and sticks his head in the window and only stops when the cop pets him. The cop started laughing and told me how lucky I was to have him, then let me go with a warning. My friend got pulled over a while back. Got by a speed trap 55 down to a 35 zone. The cop walked up to the car, looked at her and said, "Give me one good reason why you were going 53 in a 35, my friend." Without any hesitation responds, "I'm dyslexic." She didn't get a ticket, lol. My buddy got a cop to laugh pretty hard once. We got pulled over. He was driving a car he had picked up at police auction. The car was missing the VIN on the dash, so the cop put him in cuffs and in the back of the car and had me stand behind it till he could clear everything. Out of nowhere my buddy starts screaming and banging his head on the seat. Cop looks at me and asks what my buddy is on. I say nothing as he doesn't even drink. Turns out a spider started crawling across the back of the seat toward my friend, who is terrified of them. He freaked and could only think to kill it with his head. Once we figured out what was going on, the cop had a good laugh at him. Then the cop impounded his car and left us on the side of the road, so I guess it still wasn't enough, lol. Remembered a good one. Saw someone not wearing their seatbelt driving by them. I turned around real quick and I pulled them over. I don't like giving them the ticket unless 1. I make eye contact with them driving next to them and then point to their seatbelt and they have this "oh crap" moment. Or 2. Get up to their window quicker than they can put it on. Otherwise they put it on and think they can sit there and lie about it to your face even though you're not stupid. Well, I was going with tactic 2, which isn't the safest tactic in the world because you should always be cautious when approaching a vehicle on a stop. I get up pretty quickly to the sight of an obese woman struggling to get the belt around her waist and yelling frantically. I stop her and say, "Ma'am, having trouble?" She replied, "I'm too fat to wear the freaking thing." Laughed pretty hard but felt bad afterwards. I asked her how much she weighed, made a note in my notebook and gave her the ticket and told her to plead not guilty. Knowing that traffic court is seriously delayed in my area, I told her that if she loses 10 pounds by the court date, I'll take a dive during my testimony of the ticket. She lost 20 and turned her life around. Don't really know if she wears her seatbelt all the time, but I like to think that it was still worth my discretion to do that. Kudos. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.